Setbacks don't have to stop you. They can guide you towards success. And in this show, we have three experts here to share actionable tips for you to turn your challenges into learning moments, build the confidence to dream big and achieve more. I'm super excited. Let's go say hi to our guests here today. Hi, Karen.
Hi, I'm Karen Anderson. I'm based in Australia and I'm the CEO of Escape to Better Foundation. And you can find me at escapetobetter.org.
Well, great to have you, Karen. And I'm super excited to have you as well as Emmagness. Hi, Emmagness.
Hi, I'm Emmagness Ruzvidzo, Managing Director of VACA Consulting. I'm based in Australia and you can find me at vaca.com.au.
Welcome, Emmagness. And hi, Alexandra.
Hi, Laura. I'm Alexandra André. I'm based in Melbourne, Australia. I'm an author, speaker, and marathon coach, and you can find me at alexandraandre.com.
Wonderful. I'm so excited for this Premier Women show. I love hosting this and especially this topic from setbacks to success. And each of you specialize in a different area. So I thought I'd go over to you, Karen, and ask you what advice you have for our viewers in getting from setbacks in their personal relationships to success.
So if you happen to be someone who's experiencing domestic violence or intimate partner abuse, I'd like to give you just this little piece of advice. All relationships have ups and downs, and when times are good, it's easy to forget about the intimidation, the insults, and the abuse. But always remember this: abusers know how to be nice, but they don't know how to be trustworthy. And it's their volatility and their tempers that make them dangerous. And that's why you need to leave the relationship, because you can't trust your safety with them.
And so once somebody has this awareness, like, oh my gosh, she's so right, Karen, you're so right. What might be a first step for them to take to, I mean, usually they just can't walk out the door, but what would you recommend?
So two things. First of all, we have an escape plan on our website, and that gives you 4 different ways to get out. And it's important to have different options because of the volatility of your abuser. And so they can be really urgent. You have to just get out now, and something more planned. The other thing is to reach out to trusted family or friends, or even some of the great support services in your area, because they can give you more personalized advice.
Yeah, really, really important advice to take to heart for those who are dealing with it. And it may be shocking for some people to hear this at the beginning. Is there any support or something you wish you heard, or people wish they heard when they just kind of realize, what, there's no other option but get out?
I think the biggest thing for me was I worked on instinct. And it was 2 or 3 years after I had left the relationship that I happened to catch the tail end of a Dr. Phil show. And he was talking then about how dangerous it is for women when they are thinking about leaving and for the next few years. No one told me that. And that is so crucial, to be diligent about your safety, because an abuser it does unexpected, unimaginable things. And so you have to be really aware that anything could happen and to keep yourself safe.
And it sounds like you're not safe in the relationship either. So it's not a matter of you should stay there to be safe, right?
Yeah, because the statistics say that it will just get worse and worse and worse. And when you leave, you now have control over your environment, so you can actually control your exposure to the abuse. And that's the key. So you just need to be a bit cautious, but you now start to rebuild your life and you have control. And that's the big thing that abusers take away from you.
Beautiful. Well, thank you for being a beacon of hope and guidance for people who are in this kind of a setback. Now I want to go over to Emmagness and let's talk about business. Emmagness, you're a specialist in that area. So what advice do you have for people to achieve success and avoid setbacks in business?
So VACA is a brand marketing and coaching company, and the name VACA is Shona, which means building on a firm foundation. And the reason that this is quite important is when I talk to a lot of business owners or business leaders, I hear a lot of, oh, my marketing is not working, my business is not growing. And it's always based on something not working. But when you then really dig deep, it's evident that at times there's no foundation in the marketing programs that they're running. And the first step I always take is to do an audit. So conducting an audit, see what's actually working and what's not working. And what does success mean to the business owner or the business leader? This is what maybe the marketing programs they are running. Are they actually feeding into the business goals that the business has set out from the beginning? So this is always the first stage of building on a firm foundation. Find out what's working, what's not working, do a really complete audit, then do research. So for most big organizations that I work with, there are usually some audience within their target market. There's some audiences they're not speaking to. And this is where the inclusive marketing consultancy comes in. And that's the lens I then wear. Which areas of their target audience or which people within their target audience are they leaving out in their marketing programs, in their communication, in their advertising? Because when people feel like they belong with a brand, they become loyal, they spend more money, and you just start to generate revenue. So always go back to what do you think is not working, and then build from that.
Wow. And then, so if you gather all this information and you've left out a certain part, what would you recommend as the next step?
The next step is to really then understand what are the cultural nuances around the target market you want to speak to, and make sure that it's not performative as well, because there is the danger of then it becoming performative and speaking to everyone. And this is always interesting within the inclusive marketing work, that inclusive marketing is not saying speak to everyone, but it's saying within your target audience, who is it that you're not speaking to, or who is it that your message can offend within your target audience, and you end up leaving money on the table. So the next steps I always recommend as well is to come up with campaigns that are inclusive, but also test them before going to market. Have a focus group, or a study test with certain people and get the feedback first before amplifying it on different channels.
Oh my gosh, I think that's so critical, because we've seen those marketing disasters where people just get so much backlash and they weren't expecting it because they weren't thinking about it. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh crap, now I see what I really did. And oh my gosh, so it's huge. How do you get your team up to speed on that?
So internally, what I found as well is that the biggest advocate for any brand are the employees. So before launching any campaign or going a different direction, it's really getting the team up to speed internally, so that when this campaign goes live, you've got advocates, you've got brand advocates internally that can advocate for it. They're all on the same page, and they actually they feel like, oh, this campaign is for us, we belong, we are part of it. So they feel involved. And when you've got your employees acting as brand advocates, it's so easy to then have a very successful campaign. But again, it's all about, training and coaching and making sure that there's alignment first before going outward. And I call this the inside out strategy. You start internally. If you want anything to succeed, you have to start internally.
Wonderful. Yes. And that makes so much sense. I love this VACA, the foundation that we build so you can prevent setbacks. And that's huge. So thank you for those tips. And Alexandra, now I know you work on helping people achieve things physically, like marathons. What tips do you have for our viewers today on how to go from setbacks to success?
Sure. Thanks, Laura. And it's great to be here. I absolutely love this topic. I think the first thing, and I'm going to talk about running, because that's been my journey and what I've learned sort of around life through it. But when I talk about running, I talk about life and any other sort of form of it as well. So I think the first thing around setbacks is to reframe them. And if I can just put it out there that if we can all find a way to embrace setbacks, because on the surface, they feel like we've failed. They feel like something's gone wrong. Why is this being done to me? But there's another more enlightened way to view them. And I've certainly found that through running. If we can see them as a guidance, there's something in this setback that I can learn from. That is if you can reframe a setback and not see it as something that's negative, that something in the long term will actually be positive. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today if I hadn't been an injured runner for 5 years. If I hadn't been made redundant from my work, I wouldn't be doing my own thing. So I think it's about reframing and resetting in terms of how we see setbacks in any form. Initially, a setback is, feels like a real blow. It feels like, you've missed out on that goal, whether it's running or whatever it may be. But if you can honor that, appreciate that, and sit with that, and then start to explore, actually, what's the gift in this? What's the learning in this? And how can I move on and move forward from here? In my book, I dedicate a whole chapter to setbacks, and I talk about being really grateful for the setbacks that happened to me. So I think that's an overarching theme is about finding the gift and the learning in them. And the sooner and more readily you can do that, the better. So yeah, that would be my overarching theme. And setbacks can help us find a different way, whether it's in business or in running. Typically in running, a lot of running I did, I had all these running injuries, and that helped me find a different way to run, helped me listen to my body and find a more holistic way to run. And you do that, you can run further, you can run faster, it can be more balanced and more joyous. So I think that's my overarching sort of theme and message, is really about embracing setbacks, and finding the learning and gift in them that you might not have otherwise.
Because you become better. You have the opportunity to find out where you can become better. And if you didn't have that setback, you would have just been at the same place you've always been.
Exactly. And actually, there's a wonderful quote I heard talking about life doesn't happen to us, it happens for us. And I think that's a wonderful sort of way of looking at a setback. Actually, what if this was happening for me? It could be long, it might take some time, it might take years before you look back and reflect on that. But I think if we can view setbacks in that way, it can be so much more empowering in life and all forms.
And I would say that's a great question, a great coaching question. What if this was happening for me? How would I respond to it? What can I gain from it, right? What else? Are there any other questions you'd recommend people ask themselves to coach themselves through the setback?
Sure. There's lots, but mainly the purpose. Why did you take on this goal in the first place? What does achieving it mean to you? And if it means enough and matters enough to you, you just won't stop at the first setback. You'll work through it and you'll continue on. You will do whatever you need to do. You'll work through and overcome whatever you need to continue on. But if you took on that goal in the first place, very lightheartedly and for someone else, not you, then the sense of purpose isn't there. Well, I will stop. So asking yourself what the sense of purpose is, what your purpose is in doing it. And also not letting setbacks define you, making it about the journey, not just, when it comes to running, achieving a race and a time, making it about the journey more than just one day or one point in time. And the other aspect would be celebrating progress. When a setback happens, we can all focus on that and it's the end of the world, or you can go, actually, what are all these other things that I've achieved and gained from this journey, whether or not I achieve it. So making it about the journey, not just the outcome, celebrating progress and giving that goal an enormous sense of purpose in the first place. They can all help with the foundations and not let a setback get in the way, allow you to continue on and achieve what you set out to.
Yeah, I love these tips for success and mindset and moving forward and getting to where you want to go from the three of you. And so I want to go back around, learn a little bit more about each of you and your expertise. So Karen, tell us about who do you love working with and what do you do for them?
Sure, thank you. So we work with people experiencing domestic violence and intimate partner abuse. All of our resources are available online, and they are designed to help women make the courageous decision to leave an abusive relationship before she is in crisis. And that's the key, it's before. And we do this through the perspective of lived experience, so our advice is very practical and real.
It's so powerful. And so do you have a story about how you help somebody?
Yes. I was told an employer actually used our resources page to step through how to plan an escape with one of his employees who very sadly was in a highly abusive relationship. And I think that's one of the things we can stereotype people living in abusive relationships as being in lower socioeconomic groups. But the reality is we have people throughout all spectrums of the economy and levels of education, and they're just soldiering on, even though at home life is very dangerous and miserable.
Yeah, it's beautiful that it's a resource that's available that people can give to each other, like,
Yes,
here, let me help you, and here's how I can help you. You now have a resource for not only the person in the situation, but someone who wants to help them.
yes,
I love
exactly.
that. Congratulations. So Emmagness, let's learn a little bit about you now. Tell us about who do you love working with and what do you do with them?
I love working with B2B organizations and small businesses. And the B2B arm is mainly on the creativity that I can get through marketing, because there's this misconception that B2B is not very exciting. It really is. I absolutely love it. And you just need to find creative ways of working around it. I also love working with small businesses, and I've structured plans that they can get access to really good marketing, because in most cases the resources are limited, but small businesses are such a critical part of our economy, and if they got the right resources, then they grow. So those are the two key areas that I love working across.
Awesome. So tell us, do you have a story, success story about somebody you helped, a client?
Yes. So this one was a B2B client. And this again was when I was wearing my inclusive consultancy hat. And one of the things that I recognize is we all have blind spots. We all have blind spots because we've grown differently, we've interacted with different people in our lives. But for this marketing team, this particular team, they wanted to produce a campaign to show solidarity with a certain group of people. And the way they were going to do this was through showing a feast. But this feast was a white feast. So most people would really like that. That's shocking. It's no, you can't do that because it's got so many implications. But there were blind spots within this team and they didn't see anything wrong with that. So when I was brought in to consult, and it's great that this happened before it went out into the market, and then explaining the different ways that this could be received by the market, it then changed, and we went through and we used like the 3D drawing of different colors like purple and all these beautiful other colors that we used. And the campaign was such a success because it spoke and it resonated with the target audience they needed to reach to. But if it had been launched the way they'd originally planned to launch it, it would have been a PR nightmare for them.
Yeah. Thank goodness you were there. And thank goodness they listened, right? They listened to you
Yes,
because they had their
they
own
did.
ideas. It's like, oh, but if they don't, yeah, anyway, good job. All right. And Alexandra, tell us about you. Who do you work with? What do you do with them?
Sure. Thanks, Laura. I love working with females, female runners, typically, who are looking to achieve more in running and in life. I really love working with women. I think we're really good at doubting ourselves sometimes and not believing in ourselves. And uh, there's such value for us, for the people around us and the world at large, when we actually believe more in ourselves and realize just how capable we are. Yeah.
I love how your work overlaps to real life. You know, like every lesson you learn as a runner, you can apply to your own life. And so
Yeah.
tell us about somebody you helped.
Yeah, sure. It is. It's running on the surface, but it's absolutely life at its core. Someone I helped recently, her name is Sharon. She's a beautiful woman. She read my book. She watched her son run the Melbourne Marathon last year, and she was so inspired. She thought, I'm going to run it next year. Now, I'll just paint the context a little bit here. She's 112 kilos, so she's a large woman. She works in a sedentary role behind a desk, hasn't been active for a long time. And she told her son that she was going to run the marathon next year. And he sort of said to her, "Oh, good on you, Mum. You don't need to," as in you couldn't do that. And in that instant, she said, "Oh, game on, sunshine," as in you just watch me. And that it was so beautiful. And that just became her inspiration. She got in touch and asked if I would consider helping her for the half marathon. And I was just delighted she'd got in touch. And I said, "You had me at Game On Sunshine." So we worked through a training program, and I don't just do a program. Actually, I'm there to support people for whatever comes up on the journey. And I really talk about being on their team and helping them in a holistic way. So she'd never run. So she took on a goal to run 21 kilometers. And she couldn't run to the end of her street at the start when we started. I'm talking like 100 meters, couldn't do it. So it was a huge goal for her, absolutely huge. Every run she did was a new milestone she'd never run before. She worked through so much physically, emotionally, and mentally. We built into walking intervals, so 2-minute run, 1 minute walk. And even for her to work through feeling that she was actually a runner, not a fake, even though she was doing some walks in there, which was just a really strategic, smart way of getting her to do the distance. She put her back out 10 days before. Her chiro told her not to do it. Again, we worked in a holistic way, in various forms. And she did it. She did 21 Ks. She wore her medal for an entire week. That's what achieving this goal meant to her. And we had a debrief afterwards. And I asked her a couple of questions. And one was, what are you most proud of in terms of what you did and the journey you went through? And she said that I got to a place where I believed in myself. And that was, and I can still feel it now, her reply to that like to enable, Sharon went on the journey, she asked for my help, but for me to play a part of her getting to a place where she's believing more in herself, that was just phenomenal. So that's, that makes what I do just so special. And I hope to do, that's happened a few other times in different ways, but that's what a gift to be able to enable someone to believe in themselves. That's why I do what I do.
Totally. There are so many places where adults will say no to something because they don't believe they're good at it, they can achieve it, and they turn their back on themselves, not on the opportunity, but on their potential. Even if it's singing or art or running or something physical or intellectual, you're inspiring people to go beyond and stretch and have that fulfillment. So thank you for that. And speaking of all of you who are magnificent in what you do, and the passion you bring to helping people and businesses is so inspiring. That's who we have here at Women Speakers Association to connect with. I wanted to hear from each of you about what you love about Women Speakers Association. So Karen, and what value it's brought to you. Would you like to go first?
Sure. So the purpose of my life completely changed after attending my first virtual networking event at Women Speakers Association. And what was sort of started as a vague idea has actually been nurtured and developed by the members here. And so now every time Escape to Better Foundation helps a woman, I know it's because Women Speakers Association has been there helping them as well.
Oh, that's beautiful. And I know one of your earliest involvement with Women Speakers Association was with the Voices of the 21st Century books. And this is our forthcoming book that's coming out. It's Wise Women Bringing Light to the World. And it just gives people immense doors open. So thank you for being a part of that. And we're so excited that you opened that door for other women too, and yourself and others. So Emmagness, tell us about what you love about Women Speakers Association.
Laura, I feel I found Women Speakers Association at the right time in my life. I had gone through a redundancy, and during that time, I was feeling a little bit lost, and just coming across Women Speakers Association and joining, and then writing a chapter and participating in writing the book, becoming an author. And I didn't realize that writing could be so healing. And so that has been one of the most beneficial aspects for me, that putting my story on paper was actually really healing and helped me then shape everything that I've done up to this point.
Can't wait to read your story now. That's great. Yeah, and we get to know each other's stories here at Women Speakers Association, as we've done here on today's show. So Alexandra, share with us what you love about Women Speakers Association.
Sure. I think for me, it's really the connections at Women Speakers Association. When you're doing your own thing, which I am, it can feel like you're on your own. It's a solo act kind of thing. You're not resourced, but the calls and the connections with Women Speakers Association, it doesn't feel like you're alone, and it also feels like, particularly the speaking side of my business, it's given it momentum and giving it airtime. And there's something really special about a group of women uniting together and just getting on those calls. And like, I sit there listening and thinking, how can I help? Who can I help on this call, and how? And I'm sure I'm sure everyone else is possibly, it's just what we do, right? We want to help each other. And it's a really powerful thing when you bring driven women together, doing their own thing in their own way. We just want to help and support each other. And I think Women Speakers Association has facilitated that and really, connected many women across the world, and will do so more so in a long time to come, I'm sure. So the connections, I think for me, have been the most powerful thing, definitely.
Yeah, and it's so magnificent what you're all saying. And what I love is we've got this really beautiful growing group of Australian women coming to the table. We have women in Europe and women in North America. We could use some in South America and Africa. We have some in Africa. So I love the global nature of Women Speakers Association. So thank you, ladies, for bringing your heart to the world and for sharing it with us today. So we'll be back with you next week. We have a special show with our Premier Women, and I'm Laura Rubenstein, your host and producer of the Premier Women Show. We'll see you.